Hello and welcome to another episode in our special KBB Review podcast mini-series dedicated entirely to our Rising Star finalists for the KBB Review Awards 2026. I'm KBB Review's own Rising Star, George Dean, and each month in the lead up to the awards, I'm personally inviting you to meet all 8 of our finalists for the Rising Star category, which is all about celebrating fresh and exciting young talent in a variety of roles across the kitchen, bedroom and bathroom retail industry. And today, I can't wait to introduce you to Jessica Liu, a kitchen designer at Chisholm Design, who we're delighted to reveal as the 3rd Rising Star for next year's awards. As you're all about to hear, after bursting onto the kitchen industry just a few years ago, she's already become well known for taking on projects with the sort of tricky design challenges that might make even a seasoned designer of several decades run for the hills. But before we get into that, I'd like to take a second just to extend a big thank you to our sponsor Blum, who we've teamed up with once again to shine a spotlight on this industry's rising stars. As I've said before on this podcast, this industry has an incredibly bright future. But for it to carry on, there needs to be a steady stream of fresh blood entering the sector. So, of course, we're delighted to be working with Blum for another year to highlight our up-and-coming industry leaders. So, before I get into the discussion with Jessica, the obvious question I have to ask is there a rising star in your business? Or do you personally think you're a rising star yourself? If so, that's amazing because you might be exactly what we're looking for. If you want to put yourself forward as a rising star for 2026, we've just got 3 very, very simple rules for you. Firstly, you've got to work for a KBB retail business, which for the sake of argument, we're going to define as any business that sells direct to the consumer. Secondly, you can't be a finalist from last year. It's not that we don't love you guys, but it's just time we start seeing other people. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, you absolutely 100% must be under 30 years of age by the stroke of midnight on March 2nd, 2026. You can enter by going to kbbawards.co.uk and tell us what makes your rising star so great, or you can just drop a message to myself or your personal favourite member of the KBB Review team. Although if that's not me at this point, I do think you need to take a long, hard look at yourself in the mirror. Right, that's enough waffling from me. Let's get right into it and meet your October rising star, Jessica Liu. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Jessica.
Thank you very much for having me.
Do you prefer Jessica or Jess?
I don't mind.
Either or.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we are absolutely delighted to have you as one of our rising stars this year. So I thought one of the things that we would start with is with your entry to the industry. So could you maybe tell me a little bit more about how you came to be working at Chisholm?
So when I was younger, I knew that I always wanted to do something creative. So I took arts in GCSE and then graphics, kind of product design in A-level. And then I came across interior architecture, and that was something that I was quite interested in. So I took that as a course in university for the creative arts in Farnham. And then through that, I knew that I wanted to pursue something that was creative, and that's what led me into kitchen design. And I started working for Chisholm Design since.
So it wasn't always kitchens and bathrooms for you. It was something interiors based, but not specifically that.
Yes, definitely.
So can you tell me a little bit more about your day-to-day role at Chisholm?
My role really varies, and that's one of the things that I really enjoy. I deal with a lot of clients on a day-to-day basis, so depending on where they're at different kind of stages of our process, I could be on site with the project manager, and if there's a new client, we quite often go to site and we do an initial consultation. So that's where we get the brief from the client and make sure that we really understand how they use the space, what they're looking for in the kitchen, and we kind of draw up on that. I kind of do the design on the computer.
So you're very client focused as well as doing all the design yourself?
Correct, yeah.
That's quite a lot of responsibility for one person as well, especially considering you've only started in, is it 2022?
Correct, yeah. So our first projects were quite small. I was more kind of in the office, but I did have chances to go out on site and do visits and meet the clients. And then just through time, I got more involved on the more client-facing side and dealt with more projects. Different projects, like small projects, internal renovations, to big projects and new builds, which could take, 1 or 2 years. Yeah, there's a lot of variety.
It sounds like a lot, especially if you're almost managing these projects for several years, especially.
Yeah, correct. I think one thing that I liked is quite a small company, so we get to be involved in every stages of the process. no one day is the same. You walk into the office and, you look at emails and other things that pop up.
So would you say you're a people person? Because one of the things that I always think is really funny about this industry is you can be incredible at design or planning or even admin, but as well as having all of those traits and having a really good eye for things, you then have to be a really good people person to manage clients and site visits and things. So is that something that comes naturally to you as well?
I wouldn't say so. I think I've definitely learnt a lot through kind of my time being at Chisholm. The more you do it, the better you get. But I do enjoy talking to clients and also being on site, talking to builders and trades.
You can't not really, can you?
Yeah. And I think building like really good relationships with the client and the builder, it is really, really good because it's a team effort. And so when everybody's like fully invested, I think that's when we create a really good project together.
And again, you're right, it's a team effort, but you're the one in the middle who's sort of managing things, aren't you? Which can be quite tricky sometimes, I think.
Yep.
So one of the things I really wanted to talk to you about was in your entry, your manager, Rob, said, well, basically he outlined some of the really sort of zany projects that you've been working on. A lot of really old, sort of, I think he mentioned there's a 400-year-old cottage project that you did. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
This project was... again, there was some challenges, obviously being such an old cottage in Hampshire. So when I got the brief to redesign the kitchen, we really looked at the constraints that we were working to, the limitations. One of the key features that we added into the layout was putting these curved cupboards to make the space feel more open, feel softer. The client also wanted like a island, as she's kind of in her previous home, she had a small island in the middle, and we really thought about how to create that inner space but make it feel that it wasn't in the way. So it kind of ended up almost like a larger butcher's block kind of in the middle, and we put kind of rounded posts and curved corners again to pick up that soft look, and it really worked in the space. And it kind of gave her the extra prep space as well as, informal seating in the kitchen.
Yeah, because I'm picturing it's got all these crazy curves and things. Because when I've seen this before, you've discussed that it's got like a lot of the walls aren't really uniform, are they? There's a lot of sort of funny curves going in. So I think it's interesting that you've embraced that a little bit with how it looks.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of bespoke cabinets and obviously the height of the ceiling as well. So a lot of these had to be thought out and how our fitter was going to fit it, a lot of details.
Whose idea was it to do these rounded cabinets?
It was both me and Joe, who's the founder of the company. So we kind of looked at the space in detail, and the client really liked the idea of adding these curved features.
Yeah, I suppose it's hard to say no to that, especially when it's a property with character like that it sounds like.
Yeah.
You're not going to say no to making it look even more quirky and original, are you? So could you tell me a little bit more about any other projects you've done a bit like that? Because I was really astounded by the fact it sounds like you keep getting sort of thrown at you these really quite difficult challenges. You seem to just take them in your stride.
Yeah, I do enjoy it's a challenge, but then once you figured out a solution, it's quite rewarding. There was one that I've done recently as well, kind of similar property again. No walls are straight.
No, that'd be too easy, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And so we'd kind of discussed a lot about the details, and because it was one wall in particular was just really, really wonky, we discussed with the clients how we felt like it was really hard putting something straight against something that's at an angle. And we said, why don't we just embrace what the wall looked like and, create these kind of shadow gaps, but like intentionally, so that you're kind of not trying to force two different things kind of working. We're kind of embracing, a really nice fitted kitchen, but in like a really lovely property with loads of kind of character.
What I love about that is you've hit the nail on the head by saying how important it is to actually embrace the property, haven't you? Because most people, like I have no background in actual design, but if I was handed that as a project, I would do everything in my power to try and standardize it.
Yeah.
And I love that you've done the absolute opposite thing, because you're a really good designer, and you've gone, no, let's embrace that and kind of elevate it a little bit.
Correct.
Which I just think is really incredible. So obviously you've been at Chisholm for your whole design career, haven't you? And it's quite a small team. So how have you found that as your kind of first job in this industry? Is it quite a supportive place to be for a new starter?
Yeah, definitely. Again, like you mentioned, it's quite a small company, husband and wife, and there's only another designer as well as myself. And I do find the environment very, very supportive. Whenever I'm stuck, I know that I can always turn to Joe or Rob or even Victoria, who's the other designer, and we can just bounce off ideas off each other. Like we always say, it's a team effort. So whenever one of us is stuck or anything, like we'll all really, really want to help and create a good solution together.
Yeah, it's like a team project thing. And obviously, because you've come into the industry just a couple of years ago, is it what you sort of assumed it would be? Or do you find it's quite an easy place to find your feet? Or has it been a little bit more challenging than what you thought?
I think there's definitely challenges. One thing about kitchen design is there's so much more to it than you think. And I think with the projects that I've done, we get work with interior designers as well as architects as well. So the stuff that I've learnt from university, I can apply it in my projects here.
Because it's tricky, isn't it? Because you have to bring so many disparate elements together. And I think it's a really tricky sector to learn how to work in, because there's all these principles that you've got to learn, obviously, from traditional design and all these concepts. Like, I know the people sort of say it's not as relevant these days, like the working triangle. But then you've also got to keep up with trends, and then you've got to factor in clients' preferences, and it's almost too much. So I'm always amazed whenever someone has only started in the last few years doing work like you do that looks incredible. I'm always absolutely astounded by that, because it's almost an impossible task, isn't it?
Yeah, I definitely learn a lot, but you're always learning.
So just to finish up, I just wondered if you had any idea where you could see yourself in about 5 years' time. Is it still in this sector or still with design?
I think definitely still with design. And I think through working at Chisholm, I get to experience not only kitchen design, but we do so much more, kind of like pantry, boot room, utilities, and even wardrobes.
Of course.
So I think my kind of knowledge through kitchen is definitely expanding, and it's something that I really want to keep learning and keep improving on.
Thank you so much for meeting with me today, and it was great to meet you.
Thank you, and it's really nice speaking to you as well.
Yeah, and we're delighted to have you as one of our finalists for our Rising Star category for the KBB Review Awards 2026.
Thank you very much.